Hi, I'm Tami Krehbiel. I've been the garden manager here at the studio garden since last October, and one of the first projects I got to build in the garden was this rustic bridge. Rustic structures became popular in the Victorian era, and we built this bridge in celebration of the Oklahoma Centennial. We built this bridge out of eastern red cedar. One of the reasons we did that is because it's pretty resistant to rot and weathering, and it's very available locally. Most people consider cedars in the area a weed tree, so they're pretty easy to get if you know someone with a little bit of property. Ask before you go get it. We peeled the bark off of the trees here to help them weather better and survive longer. One of the reasons is because borers get under the bark of the cedar and sculpt around in there and really diminish the integrity of the wood. Some people really like the way that looks, but it's safer and stronger if you get the bark off before they sit around too long. We used a lot of methods to get the bark off the trees. We unfortunately started peeling them in January, so that's the worst time to try to peel the bark off any tree. It was really tough. So I got to learn what a draw knife was. I'd never seen one before, but this really saved us a lot of time. As you see, it's two handles with the blade in the middle, and you just draw it down the log to peel the bark off. Another way I like to peel the bark off is a putty knife. It's one of my favorites. Be sure to wear gloves though, because you'll probably peel the skin off your knuckles on these knobs that grow on the cedar tree. Another thing that you might want to consider is this is not dimension lumber, so nothing is the same. From the top to the bottom, the diameter of those logs changes by several inches. So you need a variety of hardware and tools that you might not have. So you might want to just buy a selection and guess what sizes you'll need. You may need to take a couple of trips to the hardware store. But these, we used lag bolts and carriage bolts on our bridge to hold it all together. Another thing that we did, we were replacing the deck on the barn, so we used the old barn decking as the decking on our bridge. It's very rustic. When we went to look for details on the bridge, I like to find things. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, of course, but we did just the branches. And this is a whole branch that we put in here, but find one that fans out, and then you can attach it to your posts at the top and the bottom. And as you see, it's not straight, so it's a lot more fun. These structures really become more a work of art than architecture because you get to use your imagination. Some of the other things that we did were, while this branch was still green, we wrapped it around the pole and just used some finish nails to attach it, just as another decorative element. Then this is, of course, a covered bridge, so we used smaller pieces of twigs on the top and just decoratively attach them to the top. And really, this is one of the greatest views from down here at the bottom. One thing you want to consider when you're building a structure like this is location. Always call Oki and find out where your utility lines are, and be sure you pay attention to overhead lines. When we built this bridge, we sunk these posts in the ground 3 feet. There's about 6 inches of gravel at the bottom, and then we filled the holes up with sand. There's a study that says termites won't build tunnels in 16 grit sand, so we're hoping that that'll deter our termites. Another thing to consider is the view. When you build a structure in your yard, you want to be sure you pay attention to how it looks from the house and the views from the structure. If you have a gazebo or a bench or something, what do you look at when you sit in it? I realize this is a really big project to start with, but there are a lot of smaller projects you can do at home. And there are great resources out there. The Stillwater Public Library, for instance, has books on rustic structures, twiggeries, bentwood structures, and even driftwood furniture. This was a project that was in one of the books that I found at the library. You can also go online and use any of those keywords to find a lot more ideas. This is a pretty simple structure. It's basically built with 3 sticks with forks at the top. I went out this morning and cut some cedar sticks just to give you an idea. But these sticks, I probably should have cut all the little twigs off of them. These sticks are basically cut off, joined in the middle, and then the forks make the basin for your bird bath. So if we look at this one, you can get an idea of how that's put together. All we did was crisscross them in the middle and then drill pilot holes, because your wood will split when you try to drill a screw through these smaller twigs. So drill a pilot hole, screw these together. One thing that I like to use when I'm trying to hold these with only the 2 hands I have are bungee cords. They really make a difference when you're trying to get things in place and drill the holes or screw in the screws at the same time. But this is just equally separated, and then I put the vine around the top. You take shorter pieces and drill them in to hold your forks apart and just set your bird bath in it. I did try to level it out a little bit as I was building it, but fortunately you can move your bird bath around a little bit at the same time and get your water level in it. You could use a wok, you could put a pot, you can do almost anything in here. If you're going to make it a pot holder, I would suggest that you use bigger twigs so that it's more stable, because when you get a pot with the soil in it, it's really going to be heavy. But this and many other projects you can do at home with materials you can find in your own backyard or maybe your neighbor, and just have a good time.